Good morning everybody, and welcome back to another market analysis. Now normally I'd wait another week or two to make one of these, but just this morning I woke up, I noticed something crazy. There's been a giant sell-off in the high-end PVM market. Stuff like the Twisted Bow, the Elysian, the Scythe have crashed immensely, and along with that, that has triggered a ton of movement in quite a few different sectors of the market. The Twisted Bow is now down to the lowest price I've ever seen it at, and crashing nearly 100 mil in just a 24-hour period. What the hell is going on? Honestly, I'm gonna give you some opinions, but that wasn't really a statement. Seriously, what the hell is going on? So let's have a look and see if we can figure this out. As always, if you do enjoy these types of videos, always appreciate it if you leave the video a like. It really does help my video get recommended to other people, spread it around, which helps me out immensely. Thanks as always guys, and let's get started. Now when I woke up this morning, I went and searched up the Twisted Bow and did kind of a bit of a double take. 872 mil was the current price when I woke up. Now that is kind of crazy. That is one of the cheapest prices I've ever seen the Twisted Bow at. And that was kind of shocking because at least yesterday it was worth over 900 mil. However, in the last 24 hours, the item has crashed significantly. This time, 24 hours ago, it was worth 922 mil, started to decline fairly quickly on the 14th. And then in the latter half of the day, there was a giant sell-off going from 900 mil down to 872 mil, a bit of a recovery, and then it crashed back down to a low of 862 mil. Now, the Twisted Bow is not the only high-end item that has crashed like that, but probably the most significant. Now luckily GE Tracker has actually added in data going back all the way to the inception of some of these items, which is incredibly handy. If you come over here to the all feature, you can go back all the way, it looks like now, to 2017, which I believe is when the Twisted Bow was introduced. As you all may know, GE Tracker is a sponsor of mine, and they've added quite a lot of new features in the last couple of months in being able to not only access the real-time data for flipping, but also historical data in the same place is super handy, and signing up for GE Tracker does help support me, so what's not to love? Go check them out, there will be a link in the description. Now it is possible, shortly after its release, it may have dropped down further than 850 mil, but you know what, for argument's sake, this is probably one of the lowest points of the Twisted Bow. And it's definitely not only the Twisted Bow. If you have a look at the Elysian Spirit Shield, a kind of similar trend this week. Now the Elysian had already been on a bit of a downward trend, similar to the Twisted Bow, and similar to the T-Bow just a day or two ago. The price dropped from around 910 mil down to a low of 835 mil just in a day or two, and just over the last 24 hours it has dropped immensely as well. However, looking back historically at the Elysian, this isn't as surprising. I mean, it was at an all-time high, but of course it still was a significant and sudden market crash. We of course have the Scythe doing something very similar, going from 550 mil just a day or two ago, bottoming out at around 500 mil and recovering slightly. Now, the most expensive items are of course the most noticeable. However, if we look at the Sanguinesti staff, pretty much the exact same trend, falling like 5 or 10% in value, which is a massive crash just for 24 hours. The Kodai wand, very similar, a giant market crash just around the same time, going from 88 mil down to 85 mil, maybe not as bad on that one. Ancestral doing the exact same thing. So what exactly has caused this to happen? Now, one thing I kind of like to do, and I'm a little bit unsure of what exactly caused the Twisted Bow to, for example, lose 100 mil in 24 hours, seems a bit nonsensical. Now, the first thing you want to do, of course, is to check the update blog, and on the 14th, we did get an update to the range meta proposal. Now, I have already read this, however, just to summarize, they're going to be making an additional change to the Bow of Ferdinand, but notably no changes to the Twisted Bow, no changes to the Elysian for some reason, the Scythe. None of those items have obviously been directly changed. However, there is one important takeaway here. Players are assuming, correctly or incorrectly, I don't know, that the equipment rebalance is going to be coming soon. This last little change here kind of reads as if it's going to be one of the final tweaks. So I think we can safely assume that whether or not this is justified, this update on the 14th probably triggered this market crash. Now, a fairly easy way to corroborate that is to look at another item that is being affected by the equipment rebalance. For example, the Twisted Buckler. Now, this crash happened at around 2 or 4 p.m. on the 15th. Now, if we have a look at the Twisted Buckler, a similar but opposite trend has happened. During that exact time frame, the Twisted Buckler shot up from 7.6 mil up to 8.3 mil. Another item that shot up around that time is the Blade of Saldor, and that's because the Blade of Saldor will indirectly be able to convert into the new bow. And around the exact same time frame, the Odium Ward jumped up from 1.8 mil to 2.1 mil. Now, by cross-referencing with those items, I think we can safely say that all of these giant price changes, either positive or negative for the Twisted Bow, were caused by the upcoming equipment rebalancing. However, that still doesn't really answer why the Twisted Bow has crashed so much. The Twisted Bow has already received its changes. It's not going to be changed anymore as far as I'm aware. As to why are these high-end pieces of gear crashing? Now, at least in the case of the Twisted Bow, some players might argue that the new Bow of Ferdinand might fill the gap in the ranged meta enough to make the Twisted Bow less valuable. Obviously, the Twisted Bow is still going to be the strongest item in many locations, however, the Bow of Ferdinand might be taking a little bit of its market cap away. Now, as for the other high-end items like the Elysian and the Scythe, personally, I think they're just getting brought down with the Twisted Bow. As some players started losing maybe 10-20 mil in their Elysian, they may have just thought, well, I'm just going to sell it off. Especially as the newest upcoming update is mainly just a quest, and there's not really going to be a need for a high-end item like an Elysian, for a Twisted Bow or even a Scythe. Most likely, I don't think so. Now, as far as where I think the price is going, as always, not meant to be investing advice, just my opinion. I think these items will recover a significant amount. This seems like a pretty strong knee-jerk reaction. Not to say the Twisted Bow is going to be trending back upwards in general. However, it doesn't really make sense for it to lose nearly 100 mil in 24 hours. Not to mention, in the near future, we do have combat achievements, which a lot of players are probably going to want some of these items for, and the summer announcements, which I think will bump these items back up. Now, one other kind of tier of items that I've been keeping an eye on lately is the Theater Blood items. The new modes for Theater Blood came out on June 3rd or 4th, so just about 2 weeks ago now. And I think it's probably long enough to maybe have a look at some of the trends that have started after the release of that content. Now, unsurprisingly, pretty much all of the items have crashed. For example, we have the Justiciar armor set. On June 3rd is when the new modes came out. It dropped from 36 mil and now it is worth 27 mil. So like a 25% dip in value already. Just after 2 weeks, we have the Sanguinesti following the exact same trend pretty well. Crashing from around 70 mil down to 60 mil currently. Dipping as low as 56 mil this morning. We have the Rapier following the exact same trend again. On the 3rd, dropping from around 115 mil down to a low of 98 mil just this morning. We have the Avernic, which is hit fairly hard, going from 40 mil down to 30 mil. And of course, we do have the Scythe, but we've already talked about that. So definitely not a shocker in my mind. And in the end, I mean, these items were destined to go down eventually. For example, we have the Rapier. For a year now, it had been fairly steady, but I mean, things are eventually going to go down. More Rapiers are going to come into the game, for example. My kind of only gripe with this is they tanked the current prices of the items just by releasing kind of quicker drop rates in a harder mode of the exact same content. I think if they had instead released a new raid that happened to have a slightly better or different melee weapon, and that had tanked the price, that might have been a little bit more palatable. But of course, that's just my opinion. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we do have a couple items jumping up in price thanks to the new updates. We've touched on a couple of them. However, a few notable ones are crystal items, for example, the Crystal Tool Seed. This month alone, nearly doubling in price, so it's probably a fairly decent time to go ahead and thieve some elves. They are currently valued at around 3 mil. Now, these are jumping up in price mainly because crystal shards are going to be more valuable. They are going to be required to make the new Bow of Ferdinand, and if it comes out soon, it is understandable why the most cost-effective way to get crystal shards is going up in value. Now, another thing that has jumped up in price are the crystal armor seeds, and that is again related mainly to the Bow of Ferdinand. The crystal armor is going to be somewhat required to use it, and that has really bumped up the prices of the seeds. I gotta say, the last couple months of the OSRS economy has been kind of fun to watch in a kind of chaotic, sadistic way, but I mean, I kind of enjoy it. Now finally here, I want to touch on bonds again, and now that we have access to historical data going back to early 2017, we can see the seasonal trends here a bit easier. Now, bonds almost always nearly peak in the winter. For example, December of 2017, they peaked at around 3.5 mil. December of 2018, they peaked at around 4.1 mil. Winter of 2019, they peaked at 5.5 mil. Winter of 2020, they peaked at 6.5 mil. So if this trend continues, which it probably will, this December, we're gonna have bonds worth 7.5 mil to maybe even 8 mil each. Right now, it looks like bonds are cooling down a bit for the summer, but probably in late July or August, things are going to start ramping back up, and bonds will probably continue going up in price well into October, November. That is, of course, if the seasonal trend continues into 2021, which I don't think there's any reason to expect that it won't. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this kind of impromptu market recap. A lot of crazy things going on. Let me know what you think about it down below. Why do you guys think the Twisted Bow crashed by nearly 100 mil in 24 hours? Let me know your thoughts down below. I do read pretty well every comment. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Now, before I go here, I want to give a massive thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. A huge thank you to Wolf the Hunt, Colin Corley, Timothy Chen, Guy Fox, Ocelot, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. As always, you guys are awesome. Also a massive thank you to Hunter Durand, Lord Dojin, All Things Gaming, Yo-Yo Sub 89, Need My Pills, Birdbot, and Base Titch for all being subscribed at the Runite tier. Thank you guys so much. As always, if you guys are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. You can get access to my video release schedule, get immortalized in all of my future videos, and of course, get a custom role in my Discord server. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.